once you have that awareness, it elevates all your choices, right? Because you'll be making it consciously. Because as powerful as the subconscious is, sometimes it's very aimless and directionless, right? It just kind of go by impulse and what have you. Even though it's very much more powerful, I would say it's very much even more powerful than your conscious mind, because the conscious mind can be very limiting because it's trying to be certain of things in an uncertain world, right? Meaning that if you having that framework of the ego and what have you, you basically colored your vision, right? Meaning that you are looking at the world in a certain way, that the conscious mind is looking at the world in a certain way, rationalizing it, right? So it has a lot of blind spots. This is again going back to intuition, how the unconscious mind and the subconscious can sometimes have more access of accurate information than you do your conscious mind, because we have all these
Right.
biases, right? That's kind of rationalized into being. And I guess the key point is to synthesize both of these, right? So your conscious mind, you want to be more aware, but sometimes you kind of have to incorporate some of these kind of intuition, if you will, or some kind of these kind of unconscious process that you are not really keenly aware of at all times. And this is again back to trust your instinct. Yeah, trust your instinct, but also think about in a conscious way what the choices that you are making, right? Because you can have all kinds of thoughts. We all have all kind of crazy thoughts, like what we just said, right? Go to the
Oh yeah.
intersection, do that thing, you know. But the key part is how do you to differentiate what's a good choice for you to do, you know? This is like relative to everything else, you know, you yourself, relative of yourself to the world. Okay, what are the better choices? You know, all kind of thought can go through your head, but are they worthy to carry out? So that's kind of like the choice making process is an art. I think it is an art. It's not a science, but oh, there's a specific way how to make choices, and because like we said, right? What's the best choice is arbitrary. You don't have the best in what way, according to what,
Yeah.
compared to what.
Still relatively
So
arbitrary.
you kind of have to play it by ear almost, sometimes, because it's like if you go by the strict rule of like, oh, rationally lining up all the reasons why this choice is better than the other, you still might miss something. That might not ultimately be what you actually want, because sometimes you have to cater to the pathos, sometimes to the logos, and and the ethos. I mean, it's all everything in between, right? The choices are that hard to make because it's not just purely a logical choice. Sometimes, I mean, I suppose you have to be intentional in terms of, okay, any of these choices, does that leads to a better way of life? Meaning you have to have the awareness that I have a higher mission. I have a higher thing that I'm going after.
Yeah.
So these choices have to make sense to help me get there, right? So there's a lot of inferences, right? So they're not connected exactly, but you kind of have to make that connection. But okay, if I do this choice, does that make me better? Does that make me achieve where I
And I
want to be?
think this is where it goes back, yeah, to knowing what's important, what your values are, because essentially you don't really want to be obsessing about each choice that
Yeah.
much. It's inefficient that way. You want that process to be as automatic as possible. And if you have the right things at the forefront of your attention, which is, I think that's where spirituality comes in really. Because if you're prioritizing something like prayer or meditation every day, you're doing it for the right reasons because you're trying to prioritize something, the highest thing you can think of, essentially. And everything after that, I would like to think that should take care of itself. If you got the most important things figured out for yourself and at the forefront of your awareness.